During the peak of their popularity, these American cars ruled the streets with an iron fist, outshining every other car brand on the planet. But eventually, many of these car brands started to fade into history and became a thing of nostalgia, making way for new competitors. Why did these legendary car brands fade into obscurity? What drove them from our highways? Join us as we journey back in time to uncover the rise and fall of our automotive legends. 10. Mercury. Mercury may be the smallest planet in the solar system, but the car company that was a part of the Ford Motor Company was not. Founded by Edsel Ford, son of Henry Ford, Mercury was introduced to bridge the gap between the mainstream Ford cars and the upscale Lincoln brand. Edsel understood that if he wanted Ford and Lincoln to succeed, he would first have to cater to the middle class. Thus, Mercury was born. A car company that had options like the classic Mercury 8 and the Marquise. Mercury had to compete with giants like Chrysler, AMC, and General Motors. The company would soon find itself struggling to stay afloat at the turn of the new century. The closure of the company was announced in June of 2010, and manufacturing and sales were closed after 2011. 9. Packard. If you look back into the past for a car that is both luxurious and built strong like a tank, Packard is the answer. Packard cars are the epitome of what luxury with functionality looked like during its time. Packard was part of the big 3 Ps before the war, which comprised Peerless Motors, Pierce Arrow, and Packard. Packard was one of the first companies to bring over some of the more modern aspects of car driving that we use today, like air conditioning and the modern steering wheel, into automobiles. Packard began in the year 1899. And had its golden years right before World War II began. Automobiles like the Twin Six and Dietrich were all catered to the likes and tastes of those who could afford them. But following the war, the car company found itself struggling to hold up against the new big 3, General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler. The car would eventually double up with Studebaker to stay afloat, but find itself getting cut off as people just weren't interested in high-end luxury cars due to the financial stress that the war brought along with it. The company finally closed down in 1958 due to declining sales and fading popularity. 8. DeSoto. DeSoto is a name that many Americans have heard about, but not all have had the chance to see what one of these beauties looks like. DeSoto is one of those companies that sought to bring the average American household something with style, functionality, and affordability. DeSoto is a name that carried over 2 million automobiles during its heyday. DeSoto was established as a marque by Walter Chrysler in 1928, and after changing hands a few times, was ultimately acquired by Chrysler. The brand was aimed at competing in the mid-level market against vehicles like Pontiac and Plymouth. However, as the years passed and Chrysler introduced newer and more advanced models, DeSoto was increasingly neglected. The brand was finally discontinued in 1961 due to internal challenges and declining sales. 7. Kaiser. Kaiser is one of many companies that sought to be daring and innovate post-World War II. The company found itself during the favorable turn of the war, when hopes were high and the market was beginning to boom after years of crumbling. Kaiser, initially called Kaiser Frazer, was a joint venture that began in the year 1945 between Henry J. Kaiser and Joseph W. Frazer, and found initial market success with a combination of both a car-hungry market and their new and innovative designs. However, the company would soon run into problems due to bad production decisions by Kaiser, who, instead of diversifying and reducing costs, decided to amp up production to keep up with the big 3. The company would eventually merge with AMC, which renamed the Kaiser brand to AM General. 6. Willys Overland. Willys is a car brand that is so influential that if you look outside and see a Jeep, you have Willys to thank for that, as they are the original inventors of the Jeep. Willys initially catered to a more civilian crowd, but with the threat of war, the company shifted over their production efforts into producing a vehicle that could serve on the field effectively, and thus, the idea of the Jeep was born. Willys took their Jeep idea further by introducing more civilian-friendly models post-war like the CJ5. Willys was eventually acquired by Kaiser, which changed the company to Kaiser Jeep, marking the end of the Willys era. If you've enjoyed the video this far, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel before we move into the last 5 car brands that disappeared. 5. Hudson. Now, if you're a fan of the film Cars, you probably recognize this iconic name right away. Hudson started out in 1909 and would find initial success by producing cars that were affordable, but engineered to be strong and durable. Hudson's became a known name in the NASCAR racing circuit with the introduction of the famous Hudson Hornet. Hudson eventually merged with another big car company, Nash Kelvinator, to form one of the largest automobile industries of the time, AMC. The Hudson name was eventually phased out and discontinued for the more favorable name of AMC. 4. Studebaker. Studebaker is one of the most innovative companies of its time, designing automobiles that were not only new but also fresh with new concepts and technologies that revolutionized the car industry. Cars like the Land Cruiser and Avanti were groundbreaking for their time, embodying a step forward in the automobile industry. But the company eventually began to bleed due to poor financial decisions and changing consumer trends, which led them to back out from the automotive industry in 1966. 3. Plymouth is the company that was started by Chrysler in direct response to the competition of Ford and Chevrolet in the lower-end market. Plymouth was not only a rival for the other companies, but also served as an anchor for the Chrysler Corporation during the Depression era. Some of their most famous cars, like the Barracuda and Valiant, became the standard for what affordability with exceptionality looked like. Plymouth eventually ran into problems with their products when many began to report severe lapses in quality, which led to a decline in sales. At the turn of the new century, Plymouth's parent company decided to streamline its products and focus on the most important one, leading to an eventual shutdown of the Plymouth wing. 2. Pontiac has had a reputation throughout its existence for producing cars that leaned into more of the performance-based aspects of a car, while staying relatively affordable. Pontiac was created by General Motors to compete within the mid-range market, where companies like Chevrolet and Ford dominated. Pontiac established a great name for itself with the introduction of cars like the GTO and Firebird. Pontiac, although unchallenged for the greater part of its existence, began to face issues when the market opened globally, allowing international competition to offer what they had to the American masses. Pontiac would struggle to stay afloat in such a market, leading to their eventual decline and closure in 2001. 1. AMC, or American Motors Corporation, was one of America's largest automobile manufacturers who were known for their unfailing standards and dedication to quality. AMC was born out of a merger in 1954 between Hudson and Nash Motors, which was one of the biggest mergers of the time. AMC is a company that was not just limited to the States, but was able to cover international markets. Their quality even dominated the European and Asian markets for a while. Vehicles like the Jeep Wrangler, inherited from the Kaiser acquisition, and the AMX, innovated by the company itself, were some of the best-selling cars of the company due to their reliability and affordability. However, AMC was much smaller than competitors like Ford, Chrysler, and General Motors. Because of this, they struggled to stay afloat amid labor and oil crises, ultimately leading to its acquisition by Chrysler to preserve its legacy. Join me in reliving the golden days of the 60s and 70s, and hit the subscribe button to explore more iconic products of our era together. Make sure to share your favorite car brand in the comments. See you in the next video.